Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. The New Orleans Pelicans podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. I'm Gus Kattengell, joined, as always, by Mr. Jim Eichenhofer of the Pelicans, Pelicans.com. Another loss, Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. It was fun, first and foremost, thanks to everybody that showed up to the official watch party over at Bayou Beer Garden. The next one will be Black Friday, will be our next watch party. Looking forward to having you guys out there here now 2 weeks from today, which is crazy to think that 2 weeks from yesterday is Thanksgiving. I don't know where November is going. But if you're a Pels fan, you probably can't wait for that to end and for the Pels starting unit to get back on the court. Hopefully that will happen next month at some point. In the meantime, 59-59. Game's tied. Pelicans came out, play. Brandon Ingram had an incredible first quarter. Things were going there, but I know it sounds like the same old song and dance. Whether it's steam, whether it's not being able to sustain it, and that's what head coach Willie Green had to say. But Jim, you were tied with this team, and then it got away from you.
Yeah, I mean, it was an excellent start. You're up 20-6, but as we often say in the NBA, it's not what you can do, it's what you can repeatedly do. And, I mean, they couldn't continue the way that they shot the ball at the beginning of the game, ended up with another rough offensive night, I mean, being held under 90 points. And we're seeing the talent differential catch up to them in a lot of nights. And, I mean, it's not that this roster doesn't have talent. It's just a lot of the talent is on the sideline right now. And you take away 5-6 quality players from any NBA team, and I think you're going to have a big challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. 106-88 is the final. Here's head coach Willie Green.
Guys are good. You know, the thing about tonight is that we're all going to feel a loss, and we should. We're going to feel losses. So, you know, you give them a day to feel it. Tomorrow we'll regroup and get back after it. But my message to our team was guys are competing. They're playing hard. They're playing together. Now it's about trying to put together a 48-minute game. We did it for, 55, 60% of the game, and you got to do it for closer to 80, 100% of the game. And when we do, we'll give ourselves a better chance. But some positives out of this game, but the biggest thing is the turnovers killed us.
Yeah, turnovers, Jim. And look, you have people that aren't used to having the basketball and handling it. Like you and I kind of joked about it during the post game while we were at Bayou Beer Garden. It's like that you and I can act and think we can go play point guard. This is the NBA. It's hard to play point guard in college, much less a high school or at a starting level. There are reasons why we're so excited about the DeJounte Murray, which we'll get to in a quick second, in the Atlanta trade. But there's a reason you made that trade, because of turnovers, because of ball handlers. And you don't have that. It's not just DeJounte's not there. You lost Jose Alvarado, who's your backup point guard. And it's just hard to not have that in your arsenal.
And playing against a defense like Oklahoma City, which is number one in the NBA, I mean, a decent night, an average night in the NBA, you commit 15 turnovers per team. They needed to be closer to that to give themselves a chance. I think it was 24 turnovers that they finished with in that game. And honestly, like under the circumstances, with the point guard situation, the way you mentioned it, and guys in different positions, it was probably more realistic going into that game to think that they were going to have 20-plus turnovers than that they were somehow going to be able to keep it to, a dozen turnovers. But, yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those things where you could see it coming from a mile away that the Thunder were going to do everything they could to swarm the Pelicans. Whoever was going to be playing point guard was going to have a monumental task on their hands. I mean, the Thunder were just really harassing everyone and hounding everyone that had the ball. There's a couple bad Pelicans decisions mixed in as well, but I mean, a lot of it was the Oklahoma City defense. It was just something that was kind of predictable, unfortunately.
I brought up the DeJounte Murray and Atlanta trade. It's very popular right now to be looking at because of the way Dyson Daniels is playing in Atlanta and go, oh, did the Pels really make that trade and who got it? Look, first and foremost, congrats to him. He's taking advantage, Dyson Daniels, in Atlanta. But you made that trade for what we're talking about, that reason. We saw in the first game this season what he is going to bring to this team. He gets injured in the first game. So I don't know if it's silly. I get it. Everyone's frustrated. The team's frustrated. I get it. You've lost 9 of 10. You've lost 6 straight. I understand that. But to sit there and be like, I don't know how to say it. I'm not trying to say like you would rather Dyson or DeJounte. Look, both teams did what they felt best to do. The Pels haven't seen a second game from the person they traded for. To sit there and say the Pels didn't get the best side of the deal is just silly.
Or that it wasn't the right decision to make, or that was a bad trade.
I don't even know how you can think that way.
To me, we used to have a segment on this podcast called Gym Rant. It might be time to bring that back.
Oh, the Gym Rant.
Gym Rant.
Like,
it's kind of like Gym Rat, but Gym Rant. No, I think we got to chill out a little bit here with, and I don't even mean I don't mean locally. I think this is way more nationally in terms of people talking about that trade. We got to calm down with evaluating the trade from New Orleans' perspective, like you said, after one game. I mean, not only did the Pelicans win the game that DeJounte Murray played in, but I feel like that was maybe the best performance they've had of the season so far, which I don't think is a coincidence if you think about it, with that they had the point guard that they spent the whole offseason saying, we can't wait to get this guy on the court. I mean, maybe the Indiana game might have been a slightly better performance team-wise, but, I mean, you got to let him play another. Like you said, Gus, let him play maybe give him a second game to play.
A second game.
I mean, maybe. And honestly, too, if I was him right now, I hope. I say this for all NBA players, all Pelicans players. I hope he's not paying attention to media stuff, because it's like it's not worth your energy and emotion and time. But if he is, I mean, if you're in his shoes right now, you just got to be like, you got to be kidding me that people are saying. It's like people are already forgetting like he was an all-star. He was an all-defensive guy. So that's my my thing that I've been a little bit annoyed by the last like 48 to 72 hours. The other part of it too is I wish no ill will towards Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, the guys that got traded to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Those guys were all awesome when they were here. All quality people. But it was funny to me, and I'm sure a lot of people who pay close attention to NBA coverage will understand what I'm saying here when I say this. They beat Boston. And that was really the game where it's a lot of media people are like paying attention. The Hawks, again, I say nothing negative towards Atlanta, but the Hawks already lost to the Wizards twice this season. The Wizards are the Wizards only have 2 wins. Both of them were against Atlanta. So it's like, but because they beat Boston, that gets everyone's attention. In the scope of the whole season, though, like let's chill out here with proclaiming that Atlanta is doing amazing, because they lost to maybe one of the worst teams in the league twice. So, but it's funny. I think in media coverage, in some corners of national media, one Boston win is worth more than, like, if you could lose the Wizards 15 times, and people would be like, well, they beat Boston, so they must be amazing. So, let's calm down. Let's let DeJounte play another game for the Pelicans. Hopefully, that'll be sometime in the near future. But that got under my skin a little bit, if you can probably tell.
No, I can understand. Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense, because it makes no sense to be sitting there and proclaiming one way, shape, or form. Look, what the Pels have had to go through and deal with, I almost feel like we need a little divine intervention, which is maybe why you went in this direction, but actually a really great story that we want to share with you today. Matt Bostic is the team chaplain for the Birmingham Squadron. Pastor in Alabama, grew up playing basketball, coached basketball, and he has 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 Guinness Book World Records. Jim, you want to tease this before we get into it?
Yeah, he's has the record for, he has a couple free throw records. He has a 3-point record as well. And these are all within a certain time frame, a certain span of time. I read a couple articles about him in trying to research this and find out more about his background, but it's pretty incredible. And I mean, some of the stuff that he mentioned in the things I read too, about how tiring it is to make 20,000 plus free throws in 24 hours. It was kind of funny, but yeah, a really good story about a guy that has a connection, obviously, to the Pelicans with being the chaplain for the Birmingham Squadron.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're talking like late night, overnight, 3 a.m. to like he didn't stop. You'll understand. Here's our conversation with Matt Bostic, world record holder, 3-time world record holder, the Guinness Book of Records. welcoming a very special guest. And Mr. Jim Eichenhofer's been teasing this for a while. And can we get dual help here with our guest? Dual help, a little divine intervention, and maybe some help in scoring. What do you think, Jim?
I hope so. I think Matt is here to help us out in more ways than one this afternoon.
Why don't you tell us who Matt is, my friend?
Matt Bostic is the team chaplain for the Birmingham Squadron. So very important role with the G League affiliate that the Pelicans have. But also, I mean, we wanted to talk to him today as well about some of his free throw amazing accomplishments. This man has the record, and you can correct me as we go if I mess up anything or if I leave anything out, because it's a pretty extensive list of stuff. But you have the world record, the Guinness Book of World Records record for the most free throws made in a 24-hour period. And that number is over 20,000 free throws that you made in 24 hours.
Wow.
And you also...
Yeah, I made 21,000. Yeah.
21,000.
Yeah,
okay.
You left 1,000 off. 1,000 off.
Well, I think I said plus, but also the most consecutive made free throws, right? That's another record that you hold.
So no, that is not. That was
okay.
An interview I did, and I forget who, and I laugh because it says the most consecutive made in 24 hours, and that is not the case. But it is the most. I made the most free throws, total shots made in 24 hours.
Okay. So how did we get to that? Was it like a bet? Was it a deal? I mean, how did we even get to the fact that I'm going to see how many free throws I can make in a row?
Yeah, there was a lot of Coors Lights involved early on in my life one night, reading the Guinness Book of World Records. And back in 2005, man, I was in a low place in my life, out of coaching for the first time, out of playing hoops. Took a suit and tie job in Washington, D.C., and I was miserable. And I went home to Indiana. My roots, was visiting my dad. We had a new baby on the way, my wife and I. And that night I couldn't sleep, and I was thumbing through the Guinness Book of World Records, came across the story where a guy had made 6,000 three-point shots. And I thought, man, if I can make 400 every 55 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and I do it for 24 hours straight, I'll be in the Guinness Book of World Records. Just kind of one of those fun things you talk about. And I wouldn't shut up about it. My wife said, you haven't had this much life since you were playing basketball in college. And I stopped her and I said, and we're going to name the foundation Shoot for Life. So that's what happened. I trained for like 6 months. You know how when Jenny died in Forrest Gump, he just started running.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just started shooting, man. I just started training, shooting three. Everybody thought I was crazy. And so in 2 3-point shots made in 24 hours, and I nearly died because I had no idea, how hard that would be. And it's from the old ABA line, 29 feet, 4 inches. So, which I didn't know either until like 3 weeks before the event. It was 2 feet further back. And so, man, it was awesome. To challenge your body to go that long it's an incredible feeling just to push through that. I've heard marathon runners talk about what it's like to push through the wall, the last 3 miles. And man, it was crazy the first time I did. I lost my big toenail like hour 12, and the ball had rubbed all my fingertips bloody, things that was not in the book when I read it, right?
Yeah.
And so we got through it. I set the world record, and it opened up a lot of doors for me. Do a lot of public speaking in schools and prisons, and then fast forward, I did the free throw record. So
when you did, so obviously the record for both of these, for the 3-point shooting and the free throws, is within a 24-hour period. But I'm assuming you don't spend the entire 24 hours of each one shooting. I mean, how many hours did you spend out of 24 in each of those instances?
So I would try to shoot 50 minutes. Yeah, you got to stay on pace. So I did the free throw record here last month. I'll give you that for an example. And so the first 12 hours I was shooting 50 minutes straight because I had to make 1,000 an hour to stay on pace. I needed a bunch of reserves, right? I wanted to build up some extras in case, I got hurt in the middle of the night, which is what happened. Hour 13, I pulled a muscle in my back. And so I only made 400 that hour. And so I knew, we were going to limp through the next 11 hours. And so yeah, I would shoot literally. It's like doing cardio for 24 hours. Malcolm Hill and we were in Phoenix this summer. I was training for the free throw record, and Malcolm and I were doing some shooting clinics in prisons and schools, and we were training. And you're surprised at how much cardio is involved because you got to make so many. I shot 89% for the whole 24 hours, but I was on the longest break that I took per hour. I took 16 minutes off, hour 16. And so you're out there the whole time, so just trying to stay on pace. And
so you did spend 24 hours. I was assuming like you might have to sleep a couple hours. You might have to get something to eat here and there.
Man,
I'm sure you had some little bit of food.
Man,
that was legit, like 24 hours. You spent the whole time doing that.
Yeah, because if you take any kind of time off, you seize up, man. Your muscles you got to stay active, or everything just goes rigor mortis on you, man. You're just disheveled after 8 hours, so you got to stay moving, or it all I'll be 50 next month, and so this was a lot different too. I hadn't done this record it's been 7 years since I've tried it, and it's amazing how your body just continues to break down as you get older. But so I had to stay warm. So you're right, I was out there the whole time.
Yeah, I'm struggling this morning doing the podcast. I'll be 49 in January, and I just cut the grass yesterday for the first time. We had no rain in October, and now it looks like the jungle. So I had to go do that. I'm a little stiff back there. It's crazy. You said you pulled the back muscle in doing that. Every now and then, I know Jim doesn't believe, but I do work out, and I'll pull a little something back there, and it just affects everything. It affects your legs, it affects your neck, it affects all that. And when I'm thinking of technique, and I'm thinking of a free throw or even a three-pointer, I can see how that could really throw off things, huh?
Oh yeah, nothing was changing, man. My form's the same, and I just took one shot, and a muscle kind of slid in my back and was hitting my lungs, and just doubled me over. And we had to get the train. I had a trainer there, obviously, the whole time, and they put a lidocaine thing on me. And anyway, it after that, it was just mental. You just had to shoot with it, the pain, and you're so far into it, there's no turning back. So. No pun intended. So we got through it. It was a lot of fun.
What's the recovery process like after you spent 24 hours shooting?
Man, this one was probably the worst. Maybe it's because of my age, I'm sure. But so I did it. I started at 3 p.m. We did some interviews afterwards, and then I fell asleep around maybe 8 o'clock Saturday night. When I woke up at 2 a.m, here's the other thing I'll tell you. I stopped sweating hour 15, and I was drinking as much fluid as we could drink, but for some reason I stopped sweating. So everything pooled into my stomach. So I looked pregnant the last 2 hours of this event. I'm drinking about, 40 ounces of fluid an hour, and it's not going, I can't pee. So I'm somewhat dehydrated. And so anyway, it pooled into my stomach, and I looked absolutely pregnant. Hour 24. Man. So I wake up at 2 a.m. My kidneys started working again, and so I peed every 30 minutes for the next 30 hours. I lost 15 pounds between Saturday night at 2 a.m. until Monday morning. It was wild, but I could not get out of bed Sunday. I couldn't. I mean, to go to the bathroom, I was so irritated because I had to pee every 30 minutes, and to get out of bed to walk and shuffle in there to pee was probably worse than shooting. I think just your body's just, I felt like someone had run me over for sure.
Yeah. I think men of a certain age can relate to that kind of bathroom schedule, but that's a little bit extreme. I was wondering, obviously, I mean, amazing to be able to not only spend 24 hours shooting, but you mentioned that you shot 89% from the line during that stretch, which obviously is a crazy high rate, especially given the conditions of how tired you have to be with what you described. I was wondering for whether it's for NBA players or high school players. I know you played at Bryan College, correct?
Correct. That's in Tennessee, and I grew up in Indiana. Okay.
For NBA player, anyone what are some of your tips to be able to shoot free throws like this at such a high rate?
Yeah. So I'll never forget Steve Alford. He played for Indiana, won a gold medal with the Olympics, and he had a small career, coaches in Nevada now, but he was a big time Mr. Basketball of Indiana. He came and did a shooting clinic when I was in the 7th grade, and it really changed my life. I spent time with him afterwards. He showed me his routine. And to this day, if I was going to play in a men's league or I got fouled, it would be the same routine. He told me, he said, the difference between a great free throw shooter and your average free throw shooter is that they do the same thing every single time. And so that if you get fouled with 2 games, you know, that the guy that doesn't have a routine, he's focused on the clock, maybe his wife in the stands or his girlfriend, the cheerleaders, the time, the score. But a guy that's got a routine, all that goes away. You're thinking, all right, the referee's going to hand me, I'm going to dry off my socks, wipe my butt. The ref's going to hand me the ball. I'm going to dribble 3 times, straighten the seams, make it on the nail hole in the center. There's a nail hole on every free throw line in any court ever made that aligns your foot perfectly with the rim. So there's certain things that he taught me then that I still do today. And that routine is what separates good shooters from great shooters. They do the same thing every single time.
You know, by the way, I was going to mention this. I know exactly who Alfred is because I grew up in Syracuse area, and he was on the Indiana team that beat my Orange in the championship game. So ruined my childhood. But no,
1987.
Yep.
Yes.
I was wondering too. I know people have talked about this before. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about this, but for guys who are really struggling at the free throw line, do you have any? I know your technique is the way that we're used to seeing free throw shooters, where it's like over your head and you know, the pure traditional way.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on like the Rick Barry technique for guy? Like if there's a guy in the NBA who's shooting 50% from the free throw line, is that something that you would recommend for somebody underhanded?
Yeah, I think anything that works, right? I mean, and it's once you learn, you know, how the ball can go in for you, and it's just about petitions. You got confidence come game time. And there are some certain things scientifically, it's proven that you can shot technique comes with lots of reps, you know, lots of repetitions. It drives me nuts sometimes. I was watching an NBA player the other night, and I'm friends with his agent, and he had missed 3 in a row. And I'm just watching it at home, and I could tell the seams were crooked in his hand. And that's going to, if you hit the rim, it's fine if it goes straight in. It's not going to mess it up. But if the seams are crooked and it hits the rim, it's going to spin at whatever way the angle that the seams are. And I was coming unglued on the couch. And so I texted his agent. I said, man, if you don't tackle him after the game and tell him he's missed 3 in a row because the seams are crooked, it was funny. But yeah, there are certain techniques that'll help your percentage, but it's all about putting the work in after practice and getting comfortable and having that confidence to know I've put the work in. So when I get fouled, and you can see it in guys' eyes, you know, when they get fouled late in the game, that 60 seconds between when the foul's called, when they step to the line, you can watch their body language and you can tell if they're prepared for the test or not.
Last thing for me on this, I know you mentioned Steve Alford, but I was wondering, do you have any favorite free throw shooters in the history of basketball or the NBA, guys that you want to emulate or guys that you watch what they did and you just really respect that for how they shoot free throws?
Yeah, I'm an Indiana kid. So I grew up, Steve Alford and Reggie Miller were my idols. And so, you know, Reggie, he dribbled it 4 times, bent his knees, and he released it. And he had the most unorthodox shot. His left thumb got in the way, which is a major no-no. They call it thumbing the ball. But 2 of the greatest shooters, Larry Bird and Reggie Miller, thumb the basketball, right? And it causes the seams to go crooked through the air. But they have put so much time in, so much confidence that I've probably shot more shots than you. That's their mentality, you know? And that's why they're the greatest shooters. But yeah, Reggie Miller, man, that was my idol growing up too. Clutch.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we all remember, obviously, what he did in New York, but there were so many moments like that all the way around. I think one of the coolest things about this conversation, Matt, and thank you for your time today, is not only, you know,
sure, man,
of how this starts with, as you said, a couple Coors Lights, couple, hey, this would be fun, then actually going through it, practicing, getting through this, and then kind of learning mentally how that can affect you and how you can take that message elsewhere. Started that foundation, as you said, Shoot for Life. You do a podcast here as well. Is that one of the maybe ancillary things that came out of this that you probably didn't expect that is probably the best thing of it?
Oh, yeah. It's opened up so many doors, you know, not just in my chaplain work, you know, but yeah, to be able to, you know, I'm a man of faith. And so that's helped me be able to share my personal convictions of my faith. And it's opened up, you know, many doors in that arena. But, you know, also to be able to go and, you know, go to prisons and hustle a lot of those inmates, you know, and earn their respect that way. And actually, and some of the NBA guys too, you know, it's a lot of fun when I get out there and get to hang with them and, I never thought the Guinness book would go any further, but it's God used it to open up so many doors. Now it's been 20 years, and a 3-point record, 2 free throw records. And here we are now. I'm 50 and still talking about it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Have you had players say, challenge you to a free throw contest? I mean, given your accolades and your resume, have there been any guys that have been like, let's see who can win this?
Yeah, I'll leave out some names because you'll know them. But we had some fun this summer. When they hear about the world record, they want to challenge. And it's different shooting 10 shots. Anybody can hang in there, but when you start going 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, there's a certain stamina to be accurate, and so I really enjoy being able to keep up with them, and some of them beat them.
Well, Guinness Book of Record, 3-time record holder.
Yeah.
You can go check out the podcast that Matt has here as well. Strong to the Finish, and go check out the foundation, Shoot for Life. Just go to the website and get information on there, man.
Yeah. I run a thing called Lifehouse. I'm the vice president of Lifehouse University. And we have 3 campuses where live with us here once they have your later job. And it actually started in Louisiana 30 years ago. And my wife and I brought it to Alabama 4 years ago. And so that's what we do full time. And then we use the game of basketball to, I'll tell you one more story. I was trying to make 2,000 back in last year. So that was the goal. I wanted to reset. I wanted to break a new world record, 21,000, but we were trying to shoot for 22 in honor of the 22,000 people that went back into prison. Recidivism's at an all-time high. And so that's why we were using basketball to bring awareness to that.
Very good point. As always, man, appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us. And I don't know if Jim's going to challenge you to any of those competitions there as well. How many free throws do you think you can make in a row before missing?
Oh, boy. Now?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
It's very
Come
simple.
on, Jim.
He played high school basketball.
I think I could make
20?
Maybe if I was in a groove, I think I could make maybe 15 or 20 in a row. But I'd have to be a good day for me. I think I was about an 80% free throw shooter, so I don't think I could hang with Matt. I don't think so.
Matt, how many did you make in a row without missing?
Way over 100 in the middle of the night. I think they'd clocked it like 165 at one point, 165 in a row.
Man,
you get in a groove. You're going hours and hours. So, hey, I'm excited about the Pels too, man. They get over these injuries. They're gonna be great.
That'll happen, right? You pray for us. You'll pray for us a little bit to get all through these injuries, man. It's crazy.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Matt Bostic, thank you so much, man. Appreciate the time.
Anytime, fellas. Keep those seams straight.
It is. And gave her a little bit of advice. Thanks to Matt for stopping by there, and congrats to the Birmingham Squadron, apparently.
Yeah, the Birmingham Squadron got their first win on Thursday night, so good timing to have Matt on the podcast. They beat the Rio Grande Valley Vipers 121-95 to improve Birmingham's record to 1-1. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, too, for fans in the Birmingham area, they have a home game on Sunday against the Oklahoma City Blues, so hopefully you can make it over there to Legacy Arena for the Squadron's second home game of the regular season.
There you go.
TGI Jim, it's Friday, which means Mr. Eichenhofer has a pair of things for us. Trending numbers and weekend showdown. What are we starting with, Jim?
I just like the music.
Yeah, it's got a nice groove to it, doesn't it?
It really does.
Well, Mallory, I'm going to start with the trending number, and that is 37.2. That is the average number of three-point attempts per team per game this season. So if you take all the games that have been played in the NBA so far, and you average out how many three-point attempts each team takes, it's 37.2. Let's put this in context, Gus. So there was a season where in 2011-12 season, which is, 13 seasons ago by my math, the average was 18.4.
I'm sorry?
Yes. 18.4.
So a little over 10 years ago.
It's
in 10 years.
In 13 years, the number of attempts have doubled. So just to show you, this is also a record. This isn't going to be surprising to anyone. 37.2 attempts this season is the record for the NBA in the history of the league. And I believe almost every season since 2011-12, it's increased a little bit every time. So, but I think it's interesting to me to look at that from the standpoint of, not just the Pelicans, that their goal, as we've mentioned many times, is to take 40 a game, which would actually be above average compared to the rest of the league. But also just factoring in, I mean, this has been a huge discussion point to me in the first few weeks of the season is the NBA going too far in the direction of three-point shooting? I mean, I'll let people can debate that on their own, but to me, there's no debate too that there's a bunch of effects that this has had on the league the first couple weeks. To me, the leads going away is we continue to see a 20-point lead doesn't mean as much as it used to.
It means nothing, yeah.
Right. I saw a stat the other day, I think it was NBA.com, John Schumann, who does an amazing job with his power rankings, that the Clippers have, I believe it is 5 wins in the last 3 seasons where they've been down by 25-plus points.
That's incredible.
So think about that.
Yeah, you would almost think sometimes when you get down by that many, coaching subbing, you're
right,
out. Yeah.
Right. They had a recent, I think part of what sparked him to come up with his stat was they had a game recently where they were down by 26 to the Spurs and ended up winning that game. So it definitely affects every night where you're thinking like, okay, if a team's up by 20 points, like you said, the game's not over. But I think I want people to think of it in these terms as well. A lot of times people say, well, because teams shoot so many three-pointers, you're never out of the game. But I also think from the flip side, what happens is it also makes it more likely that you're going to give up a lead, because if you're so heavily reliant on the three-point shot, you go through stretches where you don't make them. Boston's such a good three-point shooting team that they're not maybe as vulnerable to this as some other teams in the league are because their percentage is so good. But, I mean, if you take 53s in a game as a team, you might have a stretch in a period where you miss 10, 12 in a row, and all of a sudden your offense is coming up real dry if that's what you're relying on to such a great extent. So, to me, not only does it mean that you have a better chance to come back in games, but it also means that you might go through stretches where you're not scoring, and that makes it harder to protect leads as well, because if you're posting up, guys, I know post-ups have kind of gone away in the NBA partly because of the analytics, but if you're dumping it down to a big guy and he's scoring most of the time, or at least every other possession or every couple possessions, your chances of at least continuing to keep your offense at a level that doesn't allow the other team to make a big push, I think that's a big factor that you have to think about.
Final thing for you, Jim, before we head on over to shoot around this morning as the team gets ready to take on the Denver Nuggets. It's this game against the Denver Nuggets. It's game 1 of 4 in the NBA Cup last year. We didn't really know what to expect. We liked it. The new court's going to be unveiled. I might have seen a little sneak video from my boss's office. It looks fantastic. Red border, dark blue navy. Court's going to look awesome. And they got to Vegas. They got to the semifinals. And look, that game didn't go well, but it maybe was the catalyst for that team to kind of make a really good run and push. Obviously, we're waiting for health. So this team's in a different place than I think it was last year. And let's be honest, you lose a game, you're pretty much going to be out of the running, essentially, to try to move on to the quarterfinals. But Jim, when you look at these 4 games, it's Denver in this group stage here as well. You got Golden State, you got Memphis in there, and Dallas. They're still fun to kind of look at it.
What an easy draw.
What a very easy draw.
No, I mean, I've heard people say that, people use this term in soccer all the time, that this is the group of death, we're talking West. Group C is the toughest. I think, obviously, the Pelicans' record would affect this a little bit, but I think if you added up the 5 teams' records, this might be the group that has the best record combination-wise. Although Dallas is also struggling a little bit as well at 5-7. But yeah, this is totally by random draw, but the league definitely did the Pelicans no favors by putting them in this group. So
tough 5-game stretch here. It starts with Denver. We talked about this back on Wednesday. I almost feel like you have to look at it one game at a time. I watched the Lakers Wednesday night after our game. And look, they were in a battle back and forth. And I just think every single night, you just brought up the stat, you got to make your threes. If the Pels make threes, don't turn the ball over, they'll be in games. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are definitely 2 of the biggest factors. The offense, they're not scoring enough points to be competitive. The turnovers are a big factor in that. And also the turnovers are making it harder to defend. We saw this against Oklahoma City, too, because other teams are taking your mistakes and running out and scoring at the other end. So, by the way, too, speaking of Oklahoma City, for my weekend showdown, it is going to be the Sunday game between Dallas and the Thunder at 6 o'clock. The Mavericks are actually, they lost to the Jazz last night, so the Mavericks are only 5-7, which is 2 games ahead of the Pelicans. So, interesting game of 2 teams that went very deep in the playoffs last year. And so we'll be looking forward to that. But, last thing on the Cup part of it, too, the Pelicans did lose 1 game in pool play last year and won their group. But it was a little fluky because the other 4 teams were either 2-2 or worse. So they actually didn't even need the tiebreaker to make it to. But you can lose 1 game and you have a small margin of error. If you lose 2, you're pretty much done. So I think people should look at it. It's definitely not single elimination, but you can pretty much say it's double elimination that you're done if you lose twice.
We got 2 games back-to-back. Tonight, Denver. Tomorrow, the Lakers. And then the next Cup game will be Tuesday against the Mavericks in the first of 2 on the road as the Pels have a back-to-back on Tuesday. What are the odds of 2 back-to-backs in the 5-day stands?
It doesn't happen very often that a team plays 5 games in 7 days, but I believe the Pelicans have had this.
They're playing
the second
4
one.
in 6 days, right?
Yeah,
4 to 5 days, something like that.
2 days. Yeah,
well, 2
days in
2 Friday,
it is 4
Saturday,
and 6, I think. Yeah,
off Sunday, Monday. You travel
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right. Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, 4 and 6.
Yeah.
Thank you, NBA. That's all the time we have. Thank you, sir. And our thanks to Matt Bostic, Guinness Book of World Record holder, for joining us on the Pelicans podcast. We'll see you on Monday.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast